Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Anmol. Good afternoon. How are you, child?
I am fine, ma'am.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Let us start with the lesson 4 of your textbook. It is a truly beautiful mind. Let us discuss the title of the lesson first, right? A truly beautiful mind. Now, this mind is not brain here in this story. Mind is referring to a person. It is referring to the personality of a person. It is referring to the one who is not only, later on you will read, he who is not only genius. We know him as a genius, right? We know him as a scientist, as a physicist. But no, that is and one side of his personality. But another side of his personality is more beautiful. That is his being humanitarian. He is a beautiful person because he is not only known for his intellect, but he is also known for being a great humanitarian. Do you understand this word humanitarian, Anmol?
Ma'am, humanity in a person?
Humanitarian. During the pandemic, during the second wave, there have come up many people who had displayed that how humanitarian they are. I hope you understand the meaning.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, right?
Ma'am means they help others.
Right, very right, absolutely right. Right? Those who are always trying to reach out to the humans, right, to help them in crisis. Sonu Sood, the Bollywood actor, you must have heard number of stories. How he had been helping the migrant workers, how he had been helping the people to get oxygen, to get migrate from their workplace to their homeland, etc., etc. Right? And then you might have heard the stories of various gurdwaras and Sikh Sabha, how they had been how they had displayed their humanitarian aspect by helping the people who really need it. I hope you understand, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So let us read about this man, who this man is, right? Who do you think of when you hear the word genius? When we say, oh, he is genius like the one. So what do you think a genius means?
Ma'am,
Yes.
so intelligent.
Intelligent, yes. Can you suggest any other word?
Good in all works.
Okay.
Like studies and
right.
conversations.
Studious, we say. Okay. Yes. So you are right that we call genius means intelligent, intellectual. Genius means brilliant. Genius means studious. Right. So we shall now read about a young German civil servant. The man who has got this beautiful mind is a young German civil servant who took the world by storm about 100 years ago, who took the world by storm, who surprised the world, who impressed everyone in the world 100 years ago. How? Not only with his intellect, but his being so social and really so humane. In the summer of 1905, the 26 years old published in quick succession 4 groundbreaking papers about light, the motion of particles, the electrodynamics of moving bodies, and energy. When we talk about light and motion, instantly, who do we get in our mind?
Einstein, Albert Einstein.
Yes, Einstein, Albert Einstein, because he had given this theory to the world, right? This is how he had took the world by storm with his inventions, with his theories that he had evolved. So now do you understand how we say genius, right? Whenever we find an intellectual child in the class, everyone says, oh, he is Albert Einstein, or he is Einstein of the class, right? Everyone says, oh, he is genius, another Einstein in the class. Don't we say that? So when we say genius means intellectual, intelligent, brilliant, studious, yes, Einstein is also another synonym for genius, which is used. Okay. Yes. Now, in the summer of 1905, the 26-year-old. Now, here, Anmol, I would like to draw your attention to this. Please look at this very carefully. 26-year-old. Why I want to highlight this? Because you must have noticed many a times the people say 26 years old, isn't it? Right? But when you are mentioning the age like this, then you always say 26 years. Then you don't write years. Okay. I am 26 years. No, I'm 26 years. But I'm 26-year-old. Is that clear?
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
So please take care of this thing. Yes. So it was the summer in 1905 when this gentleman, he published in quick succession. Quick succession meaning one after another. 4 groundbreaking papers. 4 groundbreaking papers, surprising, stunning, revealing papers, because the world did not know about those theories. And he propounded that theory, he brought that theory to the people. What was it? It was about light, the motion of particles, the electrodynamics of moving bodies, and energy. I hope these you must have read in your physics. Have you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so you have an idea about them, okay? Yes, his work took up only a few pages in scientific journals, but changed forever our understanding of space, time, and the entire cosmos. His work took up only a few pages in scientific journals. Journals are like the magazines, right? They are daily magazines or they are weekly magazines, right? And they are subject-specific magazines. So what he says that his theories, these might have been published only in a few pages in those scientific journals. But his theories, they have changed the people's understanding about space, time, and the entire cosmos, entire universe, and transformed and changed the name Einstein into a synonym for genius. Since then, every genius comes to be known as Einstein, right? So Einstein became the synonym of a genius. I hope it is clear.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Okay. 50 years after his death, Albert Einstein's genius still reigns. He has passed away. He is no more alive. Yet, have we forgotten that he was a genius? No. Everyone still loves to read, explore, and know more about this genius. Young children who are really genius, you ask them who has inspired them to be one or the other. They would always say, Albert Einstein. There are many genius in your school you will find, in the class you will find, in the country you will find. Ask them. They are inspired by Einstein. They want to be Einstein. Such is the genius of this man, and such is the impact the man's personality has on the young, that everyone wants to be Albert Einstein, meaning everyone wants to work and invent and contribute to science the way Albert Einstein had done. Is that right? Okay, now let us begin the story. So here we are going to read about Albert Einstein. When you read this, It is also helping you to understand how to describe a person, because you have learned descriptive paragraph about a person also, right? So here, let us begin. It begins with his date of birth. Albert Einstein was born on 14 March 1879 in the German city of Ulm, without any indication that he was destined for greatness. Anmol, in this lesson, you will come across many words which you are not familiar with. And secondly, many words which have German pronunciation. But nowadays, those words are pronounced in English also. So some words, they are pronounced in English also, and in English, their pronunciation is different. Anyway, I will help you, right? Now, right in the beginning, we discussed that we are going to read about Einstein, a German civil servant, right? So this man was born on 14th March 1879, a German born in German city of Ulm. This is the German pronunciation Ulm. In fact, English pronunciation of this city is also the same. That time, without any indication, meaning that time there was no sign. Nobody knew that this man was destined for greatness, meaning once he would become a great scientist, a great man. Nobody knew at that time. On the contrary, his mother thought Albert was a freak. You see that Albert Einstein turned out to be a great scientist, but on the contrary, on the other hand, just opposite to this, his mother never thought that he would become great one day. Why? Because to the mother, he was a freak. He was an unusual kind of boy. Why? Because his behavior was different. His behavior was strange. He was an introvert kind of child. Introvert meaning shy, the one who does not mix with others so easily, who was not very friendly. So the mother would never believe that he would do something in his life. Rather, later on, if you read, you will come to know that the mother was worried about him. To her, his head seemed too much large. Mother thought that her head was extraordinarily large. It wasn't a normal size, like usually the children of his age had. So all these things the mother had found, she observed, and she would never think that he would do something great or he would become a great man one day, right? At the age of 2.5, Einstein still wasn't talking. Finally, when he finally did learn to speak, he uttered everything twice. At the age of 2.5, he was 2.5 years old. And he wasn't talking, he couldn't talk. He didn't start speaking. And when he learned to speak, when he started speaking, what he would do, he would utter. He would utter meaning he would speak. He would speak everything twice. When one speaks everything twice or more times, what is it called? Anmol, you learned in the little girl. You remember?
No, ma'am.
Kazia, the girl Kazia.
Yes, ma'am, the girl Kezia.
Yes, yes. How did she speak? That the father, he would often snub her. I gave you a word for that. You remember? She would stammer, right?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Right? Yes. Do remember the words. When you learn new words, Anmol, try to use them in your everyday speech, everyday conversation, right? In this way, it would improve your conversation and it would also enrich your vocabulary, right? Yes. So today when you learn a new word, you just note it down what you have learned after the class is over. Then try to use it in your conversation, okay? Yes. So when he learned to speak, he would utter everything, he would speak everything twice. or in simpler words, he would stammer, like Kezia. Einstein did not know what to do with other children. Now, because of his this stammering, right, because of his this inability to speak properly and confidently, he was unable to mix up with the other children. He was not confident enough. So when he was in the company of the children, he would really find it very difficult. He did not understand what to do, how to play with them, how to express himself. And his playmates called him Brother Boring. Whatever he would speak, his friends or the playmates, they would not understand. And then they would get bored in his company. So they started calling him Brother Boring. It happens, right? So the youngster played by himself much of the time. As a result, what happened? He used to spend the time by himself. He would not play with the boys of his age because he knew that the others, they would not feel comfortable, they would not enjoy his company, and he was also not feeling comfortable. Is that clear? Now, before that, we continue here. I just want to draw your attention to this box. Here is some information. Otto, that is Otto Neugebauer. He was an ancient, he was the historian of ancient mathematics who had given an evidence from Einstein's childhood. He told a story about the boy Einstein that he characterizes as a legend. In his description of Albert Einstein, he has described him as a legend. Why? But that seems fairly authentic. He said he is being described a legend, and it really proves true. As he was a late talker, his parents were worried because he started speaking late. So the parents were worried about his future. They had no hope. They thought he would not be able to do anything in his life. At last, at the supper table one night, he broke his silence to say, because he used to stammer, he would not speak, or he used to stammer. So the parents were worried. But once at the supper table, supper meaning dining table. Supper is the dinner, right? Once at the dining table one night, he broke his silence and amazed everyone. And what did he utter? What did he speak at that time? The soup is too hot. The soup was hot. And soon he uttered, the soup is too hot. Greatly relieved, his parents asked why he had never said a word before. The parents felt relieved when they heard him speaking out the full, flawless sentence. And then they were surprised that why he had never said a word before, meaning why he started speaking so late. Why he did not speak earlier? Albert replied, because up to now everything was in order. Albert replied when they asked him, why didn't you say any word before? Then he said, because up to now everything was in order. Till now, everything was in order. There was no confusion. So I didn't have to speak. But now I think that there is the time when I have to speak. Try to understand Anmol. It has a great meaning. As he grew up, as he started understanding everything around himself, he felt that there are riddles, there are mysteries around, with the things around, so he wanted to solve those. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. He loved mechanical toys, right? So everything he found mechanical, and he loved it. Even when his sister was born, newborn sister, he would look at her and he would say, yes, fine, everything is fine about her. But where are her wheels? He had got, as if he had got a mechanical brain. Everything he would discuss on this very line, right? A headmaster once told his father that what Einstein chose as a profession wouldn't matter because he will never make a success at anything. What does it mean? The teachers were not happy with Albert Einstein. Yes, in 11th also you will read a chapter when you go to 11th. Then there also you will find there is one such evidence which suggests that the teachers were never happy with him. So a master once told him that his father, that whichever profession he chooses, he is not going to be successful. Perhaps the headmaster also, Anmol, didn't know at that time that how he is going to be a famous man all over the world. Einstein began learning to play the violin at the age of 6 because his mother wanted him to. No one knew that he was a violinist also. He was 6 when he started learning violin. His mother wanted him to learn violin. He later became a gifted amateur violinist, maintaining this skill throughout his life. Though he became a famous scientist, yet he did not give up playing violinist. He had become a gifted amateur violinist. Amateur violinist meaning he was playing a violin for his own personal enjoyment. He wasn't a professional violinist. And this playing violin was perhaps a gifted skill. Perhaps it was a natural skill in him, right? And he maintained this skill throughout his life. Even though he had become a famous scientist, yet he did not give up playing violin. I hope it is clear to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubt anywhere?
No, ma'am.
Okay. But Albert Einstein was not a bad pupil. He went to high school in Munich, where Einstein's family had moved when he was 15 months old, and scored good marks in almost every subject. He was not a bad pupil meaning student. So he was not a bad pupil, meaning he was not a poor performer. When he went to high school in Munich, there also his family had moved when he was 15 months old. In every subject, he performed very well. Einstein hated the school's regimentation and often clashed with his teachers. What he did not like in this school was school's regimentation, meaning strict discipline in the school. There was strict order, strict discipline in the school, and he did not like a few things. At times, he would argue with the teachers, he would counter the teachers. At the age of 15, Einstein felt so stifled there that he left the school for good. When he was 15, he decided to leave that school. Why? Because he felt suffocated. Stifled meaning he felt suffocated. In simpler words, he was not comfortable. Because of too much strict discipline, he felt as if there was unpleasantness. And he was not feeling comfortable in that school. So he wanted to leave that school and he had left that school. Now, where he went to, let us know. The previous year, Albert's parents had moved to Milan and left their son with relatives. Milan is a city in Italy. So a year before, his parents, they had migrated to Milan, and Albert was left with his relatives. After prolonged discussion, Einstein got his wish to continue his education in German-speaking Switzerland, in a city which was more liberal than Munich. The parents had discussed a lot Because Einstein, he must have expressed to his parents what? That he wanted to continue his education in a German speaking school because he was German. So he wanted to go to a German speaking school in Switzerland. He didn't want to stay in Italy, right? And he found that Switzerland, that school in Switzerland, it was more liberal than Munich, meaning that school was not as regimentarian. That school did not have as much regimentation as the one in Munich had. It was not so that there was no discipline. In fact, in every school there is discipline. But maybe they had been giving some liberty, some freedom to the students to express their opinion. I hope you understand the meaning of liberal.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes.
Ma'am, when you say he migrated to Munich when he was only 15 months old, means when he was only 1.5 years old.
When?
Ma'am, when he was migrated to Munich, when he was only 15 months old.
15 months old, yes. It was when he was 15 months old, the family had shifted, right? The family had moved. So he had been studying in a school in Munich, right?
At 1.5 years old.
Yes.
Ma'am, at 1.5 year old, he was studying.
No. Yes, good that you asked me so that I clear your doubt. Now listen, please. When he was 15 months old, the parents had shifted to Munich, right? Munich is the place where he had been going to a high school, right? When he was 15 months old, he was not going to school, right? Why this age is important? Because he was that old when the parents had moved to Munich, right? In that Munich, the high school he was studying in, there he scored good marks in every subject. Now it is clear?
Yes, ma'am.
And when he was 15 years old, he wanted to change the school because he did not feel comfortable in that high school in Munich. He wanted to leave that school. Then the parents had decided, after prolonged discussion, they had decided that they would give him freedom to choose a school of their choice or their need, right? And he had shared with them that he wanted to continue his education in German-speaking Switzerland because he found that school and that place more liberal than Munich. I hope it is clear now.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Einstein was highly gifted in mathematics and interested in physics. And after finishing school, he decided to study at a university in Zurich or Zurich. I'll discuss that with you. Einstein was highly gifted. Highly gifted. He was too good. He was brilliant. He was excellent in mathematics and physics. These two were his favorite subjects, the world knows, right? And after finishing his school, when he completed his school education, for the further higher studies, the university education, he wanted to study at a university in Zurich. Now, Zurich. Zurich is the English pronunciation. In German, it is called Zurich. Is that clear? So you would of course read it as Zurich because it is an English pronunciation. At a university in Zurich in Switzerland only, right? But science wasn't the only thing that appealed to the dashing young man with the walrus mustache. He also felt a special interest in a fellow student, Mileva Marias. I'm coming to that also. Yes. Now, it was not only science that appealed to this young man, that interested him, that he would be interested in going to that university in Zurich, right? He was a dashing young man, dashing, very handsome, with his walrus mustache. Now, walrus mustache, you know, these whiskers of the men, right? But why it was called walrus? Here I have brought two pictures for you. This is young Einstein with his walrus mustache. Look at the face of walrus and look at the shape of these whiskers of Einstein, right? Apart from that, you see just near the nostrils of walrus, can you find here a bunch of whiskers?
Yes, ma'am.
छोटे छोटे बाल है ना जो नीचे की तरफ झुक रहे, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is because of this only, because walrus has the same kind of bunch of hair or whiskers around his nose hanging down. So this shape of mustache, it is called walrus mustache. Is that clear? And mustache, what is mustache? You know very well?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And the word is pronounced as mustache. Some people pronounce it as mustache also. Right? Now, what else was interesting in that university? What else had interested him? He felt a special interest in a fellow student, in his classmate. That was Mileva Marias, right? She was Mileva Marias, whom he found to be a clever creature. Clever creature meaning intelligent. The clever the people are, they are intelligent, right? So why he was interested in this girl? Because he found this girl also intelligent enough. He himself was intelligent. And of course, he would love the company of such people. This young Serb had come to Switzerland because the university in Zurich was one of the few in Europe where women could get degrees. Now, this Mileva, she was a Serbian woman. She was a Serb. Why Serb? Because she belonged to Serbia, right? She belonged to Serbia. She had come from Serbia. From Serbia, she had come to Switzerland and to this university in Zurich only because in Europe, very few universities were there at that time, right? Many 100 years ago before, right? Very few universities were there where there was the provision for women's higher education, where the women's degree courses had been introduced. And this university in Zurich, where Albert Einstein had taken admission and he started going, she also sought to get admission there only because this had been giving degrees to the women as well. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now, you know that there can be short questions. In short questions, there can be one question that why did Mileva join university in Zurich? So then you can say, because it was one of the few universities in Europe where the degree courses were available for women also. Einstein saw in her an ally against the Philistines, those people in his family and at the university with whom he was constantly at odds. Try to understand. Einstein saw in her an ally. He found the girl worth friendship. He thought she could be a good friend, right? He found her more as a friend as compared to or than his own family members and many other students whom he met at the university. He found her a person for being a friend against the Philistines or Philistines. Now, what is Philistines? Philistines are those people who have no interest in music or art or literature, right? And he found that Mileva was the one who was interested in all this. He himself was interested in music. He had been playing violin, right? He had been genius, and the girl was intelligent. So somehow he might have felt that Einstein and the girl, both of them, they were like-minded people, right? So that's why he thought her to be a friend. Whereas the people, some people in his family and at the university, with whom he was constantly at odds, meaning he was not friendly with them, because they had no interest. Because they were Philistines, because they had no interest in art or music or literature. Do you understand this?
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes.
Ma'am, yeah, ma'am, there is a Einstein saw in her ally against. Ally means?
Ally meaning a friend. A
Okay.
friend. He thought an ally, a friend meaning he thought this girl can be a good friend, right? He thought she is worth being a friend. She is worth my friendship. Why? Because she also had the same interest as Einstein had. She was also as genius and intelligent as Einstein was. You see that in the class, what happens, Anmol? You make friends with those with whom you share your common interests, common likes and dislikes, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? The one you like something and the other girl also likes, so you would make a friendship with her. Something you dislike, she also dislikes, so you would become friends. There is something common, there is commonness between the two, right? So this is what he found, that she was different from the family members and many others who were studying along with Einstein in the university, because they had no interest in music, they had no interest in literature, right? They had no interest in art. So he would feel uncomfortable. He would not be friendly with them. So then he thought, oh, this girl is there with whom I can talk, I can discuss, isn't it? So he was looking for that company and he felt that Mileva was a right person to be my friend. I hope it is clear now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The couple fell in love. They had been spending the time together. They had been studying together. They had been sharing their interests. Gradually, they started loving each other, right? Letters survive in which they put their affection into words, mixing science with tenderness. Tenderness here means love. There are many letters, the letters still available, which suggest, which read, where they have expressed the letters which they had exchanged between each other. They had written to each other. In those very letters, through these letters, we come to know that they had been expressing their love for each other. Mixing science with love. Wrote Einstein in one of the letters, what Einstein has written, how happy and proud I shall be when we both have brought our work on relativity to a victorious conclusion. In one of his letters, Einstein, when he had written this letter to Mileva, what he had written, that he would be very happy and proud the day his work on relativity, meaning his papers on relativity, they are published. His papers, when the day when they complete discovering the theory of relativity, they gather their findings and their research work is complete, and then their work is published, successfully published. Victorious conclusion meaning the day their papers on that research, on that theory of relativity would be published successfully, he would be very happy and proud that day. It means this shows how common these two were with each other. It means that when he had been doing something, he had been exploring or discovering something, Mileva had also been contributing equally. She had also been playing her role. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now, one thing you observe, Anmol, in the lesson, all the events have been given in a chronological order, right? This is what I told you when we discussed the descriptive paragraph. Okay. Now you see that when he was born, then childhood, when he was 15 months old, when he was 15 years old, then he started going to university, and now in 1900 at the age of 21. If you just observe carefully, it is going in proper sequence. It is not so
Yes,
that what
ma'am.
happened in 1902 has been given first and what has happened in 1900 is given later. No, in a proper sequence, all the events have been given, right? Okay. In 1900, at the age of 21, Albert Einstein was a university graduate and unemployed. He was 21 in 1900. He had completed his graduation, he had become a graduate, but he did not get any work yet. So he worked as a teaching assistant, gave private lessons. He started working as a teacher's assistant. This is still the concept prevalent in European countries. He would give private lessons and finally secured a job in 1902 as a technical expert in the patent office in Bern. Right? In 1902, then he found a job. First, he had been working as an assistant teacher, giving private lessons, right? And then, sorry, and then he found a job in 1902 as a technical expert in the patent office. Now, patent is when you get permission, legal permission, right? When you get a legal permission to invent, that now you can invent something. Now you can create something, right? So he started working as a technical expert in patent office in Bern. That very place where he had been studying others' inventions. While studying others' inventions, he himself became an inventor. And he turned out to be a great scientist, right? While he was supposed to be assessing other people's inventions, Einstein was actually developing his own ideas in secret. His job as a technical expert in that patent office was to assess, to study, and to assess the other inventor's invention. But while doing so, Einstein started developing his own ideas, started developing his own inventions secretly. Sorry, he had been doing the job he was assigned, but along with that, the resources, whatever he got, they had been helpful. He had been cracking his own ideas also. He had been using his own ideas. It was a great learning experience for him. And that knowledge he had gained and experience that he had gained, that he had used in unfolding his own mysteries and the curiosities of his mind. I hope it is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
He is said to have jokingly called his desk drawer at work the Bureau of Theoretical Physics. It is believed that he would joke, he would laugh, and he would call his desk drawer the table that he was given in that office at his workspace, right? The drawer of that table, he used to call it Bureau of Theoretical Physics. Now, here is the question. Why would he call it Bureau of Theoretical Physics? Because in the drawer, all the findings of his study of others' inventions, they were lying in the form of documents and papers. And they had been the source for him to invent his own ideas. He would just study others' inventions, right? And that would pave the way to many other ideas in his mind. ऐसा क्यों नहीं होता, वैसा क्यों नहीं होता? अगर ऐसे होने लग जाए तो. Have you ever observed that sometimes in the house, some children, they ask many questions? Have you noticed?
Yes, ma'am.
Those children who are very inquisitive, they ask many questions in the class also. They ask many questions. Why? Because they are inquisitive. Because they are curious. And when such ideas, such questions arise in their mind, it means that the child is inquisitive. His queries should be satisfied because his mind is going beyond what we think. Is that clear? Science is what? To explore, to perform. Until or unless you are curious about it, you cannot do so. So he would consider that desk drawer, that table drawer, as a bureau of theoretical physics, because from there he would get ideas. From there he would get inspiration. When he would read others' inventions, he would study others' inventions, he would get motivated to invent something. And from there he had invented the theory in physics, that is a theory of relativity. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. One of the famous papers of 1905 was Einstein's special theory of relativity, according to which time and distance are not absolute. So in 1905, that famous paper that was published, that had made him a renowned personality all over the world in 1905. That was his theory, special theory of relativity, the theory propounded by him. And according to his theory of relativity, I hope you have studied in physics, that time and distance, they are not absolute. They are not absolute, meaning they are not in relation to anything else. They are not the same, right? This is what you have learned. They are not the same. There can be no relation, isn't it? Indeed. So how he had tried to interpret this theory of relativity by measuring the time and distance, they are not in relation to anything else. He says two perfectly accurate clocks will continue to show the same time if they come together again after a journey, if one of them has been moving very fast relative to the other. He says it is not necessary that two clocks, you just set the two clocks at the same time, they are giving accurate time. But if with the same time, with the same clock, you just go on a journey, you just go on two different journeys, and when you come back, you will not find the same time being given by the two watches, two clocks. Now, a very simple thing, Anmol, you see that what it is? The time here in India, right? And the time in America, aren't they different?
Yes, ma'am.
Clocks are the same. Clocks are the same, but time is not the same. Isn't it? Anyway, that is across the land. Otherwise also, do you know that there is a difference of the time between between Delhi and
Arunachal Pradesh and Gujarat.
yes, right. So isn't it something very interesting and strange as well? So this is what he had tried to explain to the world. So he says that when you bring the two clocks together, after that journey is completed, you will find that one is relatively faster and the other is slow, meaning they are not the same, right? From this followed the world's most famous formula, which describes the relationship between mass and energy. I hope you have studied in your physics. E is equal to mc square. Here, have you studied this in physics?
Ma'am, no, this equation I can't.
You have not yet studied, but now in ninth you will study this, right?
Okay.
In this mathematical equation, E stands for energy, M for mass, and C for the speed of light. In a vacuum, about 3 lakh kilometers per second. He has again tried to explain it in a very simpler words by giving an example. He says, when you sit with a nice girl for 2 hours, it seems like 2 minutes. When you sit on a hot stove for 2 minutes, it seems like 2 hours. That's relativity. Again, the time is not the same, isn't it? Just try to understand. When you sit with a nice girl for 2 hours, that 2 hours passes like 2 minutes. Why? Because you are enjoying that company. Are you getting it?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? You are enjoying that company, even though you spend 2 hours, and when the time is over, you say, oh, I just sat there. It's too early. Isn't it? Don't we do it? Right? When suppose you go on McDonald's with the family, right? And you spend there an hour, and after an hour, the father says, move now. And you are reluctant to move. Why? We had just come. Please let us spend some more time. Isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Even that 1 hour you spend at McDonald's, that also makes you feel, oh, it's too little, the time you have spent. And when you sit on a hot stove for 2 minutes, meaning when there is a difficult time, even 2 minutes also appear like 2 hours. When you go for an exam in the examination hall, that 3 hours time, it is very difficult to pass that time. Isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right, yes. You're waiting for the train at the railway station. The train is coming after 5 minutes, but you are panicking. That 5 minutes look like 5 hours. Why the train is not coming? Why the train is not coming? You become impatient, right? So this is what he had tried to interpret here. And this is what he had tried to explain to the young readers, that this is called relativity. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubt? Any query?
No, ma'am.
All right. The rest we shall continue and conclude tomorrow. Right?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, you can be. If
Good
any doubt,
evening.
you will do ask me your doubts tomorrow. Right?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, goodbye.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.